Today we are going to discuss about the novels, society and the history of novels coming into society. As in the previous part of the chapters of discussion, we have seen how did the printing concept got developed, how did John Gutenberg discovered a continuous printing machine which created a great history by printing Bible. Huge volumes of Bible, nearly 180 copies of Bible are printed in a very short span of 3 years. That's how the great revolution of printing has been started. We also focused light on what is the basic intention for the Chinese people to develop that large scale printing as a major aspect for them. Now, moving on to the further developments of printing, the contribution of printing was very much more on the novelty. So the novels are actually could not be have born without the printing machine being born. If printing machine was not invented, obviously the novels would not have been there. That's how the novels and printing are very closely associated with each other. Now let us finalize or find out in this unit how did the novels get famous in the West and in the East. In the West, let us take an example case study of how it happened in England and France. In the same way, we shall also focus in our national interest. How did the novels reach to larger number of people in India also? Now moving on to the main part of the lesson. The introduction of the lesson starts with the novels and the importance of the novels. Novels are the printed matter of books which are available for the readers by paying some cost. So it is a printed book which is available to the readers. Now the point is, as the printing cost has come down, the possibility of printing books has been erased. So when the possibility of printing books are erased, we need a huge number of people to read them in order to make the books popular. So that's how the books have become very popular with closely associated with the printing. Now moving on into our lesson, how did the novels got raised very well? The rise of novels. The novels are the modern form of literature. In the old form of literature, we can remember Manu Dharma Shastra or manuscripts. The manuscripts are written on the sheets of leaves which are very thick and very fragile. It is very delicate and it is problematic for us to carry from one place to another place, and to preserve them and to take care of them is also a costly affair. But moving on to the books, the papers, again in the papers we have good quality of paper and also the cheap quality of paper. So all these things made printing very easy, cost of the book in a considerable level. That's how the modern form of literature started to develop on a very large scale with the invention of printing. If printing was not there, today the novels would not have been there. Maybe they have been printed but not in a very large scale. That's what we have to understand from here on a larger scale. Now moving on to the development of novels in England. In England and France, we have the development of the novels coming up in the 17th and the 18th centuries. So in the 17th and the 18th centuries, as we discussed earlier, that the concept of reading was being inculcated into the people, especially the categories like children, women, working men. All these people started to develop the habit of reading, to understand themselves, to understand the society's growth and also to develop themselves professionally. So all these things added a great feature for the 17th and the 18th centuries in England as well as in France. Now the readers started to grow in a large number, because when the readers are in large number, the authors or the writers who are writing the books will be free from the burdens of economy. That's what it is rightly said, that free from the financial dependence. Who told this statement? The statement like free from the financial dependence is given by Henry Fieldings. Henry Fieldings is a writer who created a new provinces of writing, who created a new genre of writing, who initiated the writing in a very larger scale. Do you think the writers are really independent or they are dependent? If you look at the payments which are paid for the writers, in the 17th century and the present day, there is a lot of variation. In the 17th century, our writers are being paid 6 volumes of books are being paid. For each book, they used to pay 3 shillings. That 3 shillings are not more than a week's salary or a wage of a daily wage labor, which means they are a bit better in a position when compared to the daily wage laborers. But the interesting point or the main key point what we need to analyze here is that as reader number increased, the sections of people who are reading have been increased, the authors and the writers started to acquire more money because the libraries, the publishers started to understand the need that if you hire a book, we can have more number of public coming into our library. So this hourly basis also we can earn something. So the books are attracting people to the library. That made the possibility of increasing the importance of the authors economically and also in the societal aspects. That's the meaning of the word free from the financial dependence. So the first writer who created history was Henry Fieldings, who wrote in a new genre the book name called Thomas Jones or Thomas Jones. This Thomas Jones book was released in 1749. It has been released in 6 volumes. For each volume, he received a payment of nearly 3 shillings. That was not too high according to the modern days, but it was a bit good amount during that times. Moving on to the next aspect, Walter Scott. Walter Scott was another fantastic writer who wrote a book called Scottish Clans Clash, or the clash between the Scottish clans. But before writing the book, he went to the people, he collected all the famous Scottish ballads and maintained a record of them and induced them in the story wherever he brought the issues of Scottish people, clans, different clans fighting with each other, arguing with each other, having a group association. So all these things, he connected the ballads with the regular story and created a remarkable book. And later, when we move on to the epistolary novel, epistolary novel is a novel which is having expression of feelings of love letters between two people, especially between the lovers. So the epistolary novel, famous known as Pamela. Pamela novel is written by Samuel Richardson. The Samuel Richardson's Pamela has been very famous. It got very well connected to the people. How fast it got connected to the people is that the people, after reading the books, these books, as we all know that in cities and in towns we have libraries, but when it comes to villages, it has been a very difficult task for the people to read the books and all. So whoever likes the book, he reads the book and he carries the book to the village and reads the book in a gathering or in a place where all 4 or 5 people can listen it and understand that one. That's how the publishing went on to larger sections of people. Now let us move our focus of attention towards publishing market. How was the publishing market in those days? As I told you till now, publishing market was not so high in the initial days. Initially they used to give a moderate payment for the authors, like an example what we have seen, Henry Fieldings, for his 6 series getting for each one only 3 shillings, but later after the development of the circulating libraries, the books which are being circulated from one library to the other library started to gain more prominence, because once the book is very famous or people started to read that book, people started to come large in numbers towards the libraries. So the library owners also decided to have more number of books on the hourly basis and get more number of public into the libraries, so that we can have more number of income as well as publicly known library. It is in 1740 this thing happened for them. And next, the slog in English. A slog in English is a book which describes for us about Pamela's story. A slog in English is a village where the Pamela story has been read out in a very large and loud manner. When Pamela's story has been described, as I told you earlier, it is a love story based on the epistolary novel. Epistolary novel is a series of love letters which are being compiled in one particular booklet. So, when our writer Samuel Richardson compiled all the love letters and the personal feelings of two individual lovers and made them to be published in the book of Pamela, where the character of Pamela gets married in the village called Slog in England. So the people of Slog started to feel very proud and started to get well connected with the story, and also moved on as soon as they learned that Pamela got married to the village people in Slog. As per the story, they went to the church and they started to beat the bells for the blessings what they got. That's how the well connected the people are. And later, the most fascinating development happened in 1836. In 1836, Charles Dickens' Pickwick magazine has been a major change in the outlook of the people towards reading, because till that time they had a book which is permanent there during that time. The entire story is fixed in the book and you do not get any broken volumes of that one. But Charles Dickens's Pickwick magazine started to cover a serialized weekly editions of the story, which means the first week you get some part of the story and people start to discuss about this story, and in the whole week after having thorough discussion, again the next week you get the another serial part of that one. So the second part you get it in the next week, again the discussions continue further, and after the discussion completes by the end, then we get the other part, then the other part. So the people are connected and waiting towards the release of the magazine, and deliberately they discussed about the issues, what is happening in regards to that particular serial. So that's how people started to get well connected with this one. This tendency we have today also, as we watch the television serials and all, these are all adding for the modern days system. So that was initially started by Charles Dickens' Pickwick magazines in 1836. So let us have a brief recap of the entire cap which we covered till now. The novels, the society and the history. The novel, society and the history are, rise of the novels is a very fantastic point what we are going to discuss now. The modern form of literature is a novel. The modern form of literature got developed only because of the major inventions which happened in printing and made the printing available at the very less cost for all the people within the budget limit of the printers. Next, in England and France during the 17th and the 18th centuries, the readers started to grow up in large number, which gave a possibility for all the writers as well as the authors to get themselves free from the financial burden or dependence. Henry Field initially used to write books, who created a new genre of writing, who created a new province of writing, who created a landmark victory in writing books. That's how his famous book Tom Jones, which has been released in 6 volumes in the year 1749, where he received a payment of a moderate payment around 3 shillings for every book. Later, Walter Scott, a Scottish ballads collection, was maintained by him, and when he described the story about the Scottish clans fight and compromise between each other, and what are the factors that made them to fight with each other, and all these things, that created a very large awareness for all of them, and his book was also very famous. Later, epistolary novel. The epistolary novel was another famous novel which was actually the collection of the love letters between two lovers, at a series of love letters, not just one love letter. It is a series of love letters which are being collected, and their expressed feelings and everything are being taken up carefully by Samuel Richards in his book Pamela. So while explaining his book in Pamela, he expresses everyone's feelings very clearly, very detailedly and very sensitively. That's how he started to get well connected to the people. And moving on to the publishing market, Henry Field's publishing market was very large and very wide. His book was very famous all over the country. That's how when circulating libraries came, the books started to move on from one area to the other areas wherever the libraries are located. So in 1740s, when the libraries were initiated to rotate their books on the rotatory basis, then people started to pump into the libraries to search the books, to read from the books. Then the library owners also decided we should maintain more number of books on the hourly basis so that we can have large number of public coming towards the library or getting attracted to the library. So there is a village called Slog in England which is mentioned in Pamela, the book written by Samuel Richardson. Samuel Richardson, in his book of epistolary novel, where the love letter series of collection has been discussed earlier, he collected the sensitive feelings expressed by the heroine and the hero of the story, and then he connects them and finally says that at a village called Slog in England, she gets married. The villagers of Slog, after reading the entire book, they got well connected with the story and they moved on to a church and started to beat the bells of the church, praising the God for the blessings of Pamela getting married to the village called Slog. Actually, this is an imaginary book, but it got well connected to the people. In 1836, Charles Dickens' Pickwick magazines created a revolutionary changes in the understanding or reading of the books. Till that time, people used to read according to their convenience. But once these magazines have come into market, they started to create serialized stories. These serialized stories are released as parts and parts so that one week after the other, the people started to get the latest updates, like this week portion will be discussed thoroughly, later the other week, later the other part of the story. That's how people started to get informative and discussions were very deliberately done, and finally it became a very popular magazine. Even today we have this habit of people discussing about the serials but not about the magazines but about the television serials, which are having a very wide range of publicity and market and well connectedness with the people.
If you like this video, please give a thumbs up. Please subscribe to our channel to get more videos on CBSE syllabus.